Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Jections. Today we discuss the Samardzic drama, Gosens' pending exits, the ever-evolving forward situation, and answer a few questions from our listeners. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Interjections. I'm your host Andrew. I've got Miko and Jay with me. Irfan's off this week. His father sent us a request for an increased salary. We'll let you know how the negotiation shakeouts. Jay, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I heard you've been golfing.
Yeah. We had this annual triple golf tournament this weekend, and I came back as a champ. So congrats to me.
Definitely, that's the only silverware you'll be enjoying this season.
Hey, Miko now has more trophies than Harry Kane.
Maybe I should get as much money as him.
Well, the cool thing about having a podcast that follows Inter is that unlike most football clubs who are more or less, the season has just started, the squad is just about finalized. Nothing is finalized here. Everything's in flux. The team is completely incomplete because there are holes at pretty much every position, which gives us lots to talk about. So let's start by getting into what has been the key story all week, which is the Samardzic situation. So to recap what happens, so we got the official here we go from Romano and all that. Back on August 1st, it was going to be a 16 million transfer, plus we were loaning them, Fabian, and then with a buyback option. And everything seemed good. When you get a here we go, that's usually this is a done deal, no concerns. The player comes and has a medical. There was a lot of going back and forth between when the medical was going to happen, but there are reports going back to August 3rd where people said he was going to be training with the first team by Monday. It is now August 13th, the day of we're recording this podcast. So he arrived earlier this week for his medical. He took his medical. Everything seemed good. He took his thumbs up picture outside of Coney. All was well. And then his entourage, which is his father at this point, did not show up to the meeting to sign his contract on the expected day. I believe they were expected on Thursday, and they didn't show up. They showed up a day later on Friday. Comes out, the father was trying to, there are mixed reports. It sounds like there was a certain way commissions were going to be split between the player's former agents and his family / entourage, and the family was taking exception with it. They were going back to Inter trying to ask for more money. Inter was saying absolutely not. Then reports came out last night that Inter told the player to go back to Udine and just leave the city of Milan. And he is refusing. He's staying in his hotel. I've never seen anything like this before. It's actually a completely wild story. I guess, any thoughts from you guys on this whole weeks-long saga? Do you have are you over the player at this point? Are you saying F off, go back to Udinese? Or would you rather, do you want to go through the signing still?
I would like to get the kid to Inter, but of course, I absolutely would not pay anything on top of what was agreed, like on principle, because if the agent, I understood this Pimenta, former Rajala team member,
yeah,
she's the agent. So if she agreed something, and I assume she has the assignment from Samardzic team or Samardzic's encouragement to handle the business of this player. So I don't get why we would pay any extra at this point. And I actually believe that we won't pay anything and we will get the signature eventually. But this is some pretty wild ride with this transfer.
The latest reports or rumors are that he took another walk outside of his hotel. This is like some real stalker stuff at this point, but apparently he took another walk outside of his hotel and was, accosted by your friendly, average, unemployed Inter fan, who asked him what's going on, and he said he will sign, or that he still wants to sign. So the player's intention or the player's desires are, at the end of the day, probably one of the most important factors that seems to be in our favor. I don't know whether his entourage, aka his father, is asking for more now, because as you said, Andrew, reports suggest that the issue was the split of the commission, right, between agent and family. If the agent has now opted out, can we not just give the, that full commission to the family? Or does the agent get a cut even though they've seemingly left the deal? How does that, I don't know how that works, to be honest. But I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I don't like the principle of these, schmucks coming to us and being like, oh, we want more money now, especially after something was agreed. And if they didn't come to a satisfactory deal with the agent, that's their problem, not ours, not Udinese's. So I'm torn. I don't want to give them more money out of principle. At the same time, I don't think we're in a position to really die on the hill of principle, if you know what I'm saying. We've, I guess, as a club, already broken a lot of promises or not acted with the greatest principle towards other players and their renewals or their sales. So, you know what I mean? It seems a little bit hypocritical to be all about that principle right now. And at the end of the day, I do think, this is a good player that we need. We've been discussing that we need assets to sell as well. It's very realistic that we could develop this guy a little bit and then sell him for a profit in a year or two if we signed him. So looking at that long-term view, I would just cough up and pay a bit more, assuming it's not, some wildly inflated, renegotiated deal that they're asking for. But we don't even know that. I've also read rumors that they were asking for, an increased salary and increased commission, in which case deal is pretty much off. But if they're asking for more or less the same salary that Pimenta negotiated and more or less the same commission, I say just get it done.
The part I struggle a lot with on this is, and I guess one clarifying, it sounds like the agent has been fired by, I assume, his family, because it does not sound like Samardzic is calling many shots for himself. So it sounds like the agent has been fired, but I would imagine the agent would still be entitled to compensation because she's the one who brokered the deal. She negotiated the transaction. Now, the part of this I really struggle with is I feel like we're already dipping into a pool of excess in that we do not need 6 quality midfielders. And I suppose, I know how much you read Asllani, so perhaps we have 4 quality midfielders in Asllani. But this isn't the position of concern for me, and I would not be if I were to have a time machine, I would not be spending 15 million cash to upgrade essentially over Gagliardini from last season, when we could have signed a player like, I don't know, Pereira on a free transfer. Just think about how few minutes this player is actually going to play this season. That's the real reason I would just use this as an excuse to walk away and say, let's screw it. Let's please go sign a proper forward. Let's please go sign a proper center back. But ignoring that and just, this is the midfielder we want. I think there was a kind of a fraternity among the Italian football clubs. I don't think, it sounds like Udinese are going to help us out here. And by that, they're telling Samardzic, either you're going to Inter or you're coming back here. Those are your only two options. We're not going to sell you to West Ham. Now, would their mind change if it's August 31st, if West Ham submits a $25 million cash bid? Maybe, I don't know. But there is value in that. And if they're trying to force the player's hand for us, we probably can take a firm line here and still get the guy, I think.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but thank you, Udinese. They're one of the clubs that I dislike. But yeah, I appreciate them doing us a favor in this way. Regarding West Ham, that was like, the very first kind of hint of disruption to this deal was precisely that West Ham were trying to, interject at the last minute. No pun unintentional there, but at some point there were rumors of like a 4 million salary, and I was trying to tie this to West Ham, thinking, presumably that's come from West Ham. But then what happened, and then it seemed that it wasn't about the salary, it was about the agent commission. So it begs me to ask, is there any West Ham involvement in this whatsoever? You'd feel like there would be more noise, if West Ham had been in contact with the player and if West Ham had contacted Udinese at all, but I'm not seeing it myself. Admittedly, I'm not following West Ham transfer news, very unfortunately, but I'm not hearing any noise about West Ham. So if it is just a case of external interruptions like West Ham, and it is a purely internal thing between family and agent, I think we just need to get it done and just move forward as quickly as possible. The season starts in a week. As you mentioned, there are huge gaps. Even though this position is not a priority, I like to think he would play more next season, than Gagliardini did last season. And if we wrap this up, we can move on to our other targets, because Lord knows we cannot, apparently, do more than one thing at the same time.
Yeah. I was about to also mention that to me, it felt like this whole West Ham story was like a decoy by the entourage or something to try to raise up what they can get from the deal. Yeah, because there wasn't much in the media anyway about this West Ham connection.
Well, let me pose this question to you guys. I explicitly go out of my way to not watch preseason Inter fixtures. I waste too much time watching sports as is. Watching preseason football is not for me. But I have noticed from following along preseason football that a certain Stefano Sensi has absolutely been crushing it in the preseason. Everyone, and I rate Sensi as a player. I think we all have seen his abilities on a pitch. The problem is he's never on the pitch. Would any of you feel comfortable with him as our sixth midfielder? Because reports this morning is that management has told him he will absolutely not be here next season. He needs to leave. His contract expires next summer, I believe. So we're dead set on unloading him. Would either of you be willing to give him a shot as our sixth midfielder, knowing, hey, you probably won't have to play many minutes? Or do you say move on because the match was it against Lazio where we subbed him on only for him to have to be subbed off 20 minutes later because he got hurt, pretty much ended his Inter career?
I would be happy to keep him, to be honest, but not at the cost of Samardzic. But at the end of the day, like as you said, it's a moot point because the management have seemingly made up their mind and they're dead set about offloading him. it's hard not to kind of develop a bit of skepticism towards the player when you have to endure Gagliardini because this guy just can't run without pulling a muscle, you know. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I would still offload Sensi and finish the Samardzic deal. But knowing us, we will offload Sensi and fail to lock in the Samardzic deal. Bringing us right back to Roberto Pereira or worse. So
I just don't trust Sensi's fitness level. That it's
not even about his fitness for me. I just want Samardzic more than I want Sensi right now. You know, I think we will need a player of that mold, especially now with Brozovic gone, because I think we may struggle to break down teams this season. I think Fratesi, as our kind of big midfield signing, he's a very direct player. I think he does his best work, you know, off the ball rather than on it, you know. I don't think he'll in helping us create chances. He'll just be the one to finish them. And so having someone like Mkhitaryan or Sensi or Samardzic, and I'm kind of grouping these guys together as the most cultured and technical of our midfielders, I think we need someone like that. I'm not hugely concerned about Sensi's injury history, even though it's, you know, extremely concerning. I guess I'm just willfully turning a blind eye to it and just going, oh, it'll be okay if we kept him. But Sensi or not, we need Samardzic.
So it started when Mancini arrived for his second tenure. And the first thing, from what I recall, maybe my timeline's a little off, the first thing he did was he shipped out Kovacic in favor of Kondogbia, which is the most Mancini move possible. When you know, bringing in this brooding brute with absolutely no football acumen who just looks the part of a Yaya Toure. And since that moment, we've had this transition in the squad where we removed players with technical ability in favor of these, as I like to call them, Grinta merchants, who just, they run up and down the field with absolutely no creativity or flair to their game. And it does seem like the only times we've had success with these flair players has been when we dip into the Balkan pool, whether it be our Croatian contingents, who was it Lajic, the Serbian winger we had for a little hot minutes. Like, these are the only players we've had who have like that technical flair that is useful in breaking down a defense. Because under Conte, there's the systematic approach, and you're like a battering ram, where you're going to just keep hitting the wall repeatedly, trying to bust it down. But every player since then, it just feels very mechanical. And I just love the idea of signing this kid because he breaks the mold. He's not what we're used to. Like a Mkhitaryan, he can pull something out of his hat, which you don't see very often from our players.
Yeah. Speaking of Yajic, he was also deported in favor of another battering ram in Eder, which is essentially the forward version of Kondogbia for Kovacic. But as I said, we'll need some creativity. Conte used to bring on Sanchez when we had trouble unlocking games, and Sanchez found a really good niche within that battering ram system, as you put it, to add that little bit of creativity to the battering ram, and I thought that worked really well. I don't want him back now, but we could have someone in that role, you know what I mean? And hopefully, if we do get a Samardzic, we could play him a little bit closer to goal, you know, have him push up a little bit further in those games that we're struggling to break down opponents, rather than just, you know, wing back to wing back crossing, which is, it can be painful to watch.
Yeah, but going back to Sensi, I think we will somehow we will like sell him, maybe for a minor fee, because I don't think we have like roster spots for him in this
I was going to ask, if we could not, let's just say, fingers crossed, that we get this Samardzic deal done, but we were unable to find a buyer for Sensi and we had to keep him. Are you saying that we don't even have roster spots to register him?
Well, we can. I think we can use him in Serie A, but not in Champions League.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
if we add Samardzic to the Champions League list, then I don't think we can add Sensi there anymore.
Right.
Or like the maximum number of players we can add is 23 because we have only 2 club trained players. So that's like the limit.
We only have 2 club trained players. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, Di Marco and what's the
Di
third
Gennaro.
keeper? Di Gennaro.
Gennaro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good lord. Okay.
Until Benucci arrives on a free transfer. So we have 2 players, not to go too far off topic, we have 2 players who are pretty much staring down the same barrel of the same situation. You've got Lazaro and you've got Sensi. Both contracts expiring next summer. Both have been told they need to leave. You would like to sell them and recoup anything just to mitigate the hit on the books this year. If you can't sell them, you loan them out, let another team cover the vast majority of their wages, and that way at least you're just avoiding some sort of income statement hits. You'll be able to loan the players out. So there are enough broke Italian clubs that someone will say, I will take a free player for the year.
Yeah.
So, and not great, but that's the path you're staring down for both those guys.
Would it make you feel better to know that Juventus have garnered 40 million from the sales of Zakaria plus Pellegrini and some other loser to Lazio? I forgot who it was.
What?
Yeah, Rovella.
Rovella, that's it. Who was on loan at Genoa? Yeah.
Okay, I like Rovella quite a bit.
But what?
But 40 million.
I know. The Zakaria one is the one that irks me the most. I made a post in the forum about this. They bought this guy. I think he had 1 year left on his contract when they bought him. They paid like $10 million for him.
But it was like in the January. So
Yeah. 8 million was Zakaria.
Yeah. So they pay $8 million for him, and he's a colossal flop. Allegri wants nothing to do with him. They immediately ship him out to Chelsea on an absurd 30 million like loan option. Naturally, because this guy's horrible, he flops at Chelsea. He played like 10 matches for them, I swear. He could not get on the pitch for them. It was clear he did not belong at that level. So then he goes back to Juve. And, if this was Inter, they'd be stuck loaning this guy out until the end of his career. But somehow, some way, they're saved because who was it who bought him? I can't even recall. Was it Monaco? Yeah. So. Monaco comes running to the rescue, offering 20 million plus a massive percentage of a future sell-on fee, as if someone's going to buy this guy again in the future. Like, what am I missing here? It
looks like Paratici's, black magic is still hanging around the club. And that kind of thing is. I mean, there's no other way to say it. You get jealous when you see that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? We have to painfully sell our best players just to get some money, and these guys are selling their trash and just casually bringing in 40 million by offloading garbage. So yeah, that's it is what it is. But it's
yeah, waiting until McKennie gets sold for 25 million, and we're just going to be sitting here scratching our heads.
Yeah, and Rugani for the 15 million or something.
All right, so let's move on to some perhaps more positive news for the week, which is we've got a couple of here we goes from Romano on our left wing back situation. Gosens, a fee agreed between Inter and Union Berlin. It's going to be about 15 million for those of you who are, the devout followers of our capital gain situation, because as an Inter fan, you can't possibly follow the club without being invested in our capital gains.
That's right.
That's a zero capital gain situation. You're basically just unloading him for the sake of getting him off our books. And as a result, you're going to Monza. You're getting Augusto for, it sounds like, between 12 to 13 million. He's a player with an expiring contract. He wants to play Champions League football, so it's a lower cost operation. It seems like a bit of savvy business to me. You can You can play him at left center back, so we never have to watch a Cherby try to man the position again. A bit more flexibility. Miko, what are your thoughts on Augusto as a player?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think his shot is very good, and I think he will be like a very good player for us. I don't know, can he play like on the right side, because it feels like he can play with his both feet, but I'm not sure. But to me, he looks really good, and he had last season he had good stats when he played at Monza. He scored like I don't know, 6 goals or something, and several assists on top of that.
He had a good season. I remember,
Yeah,
there were a handful of left backs who had like a bit of a breakout season. Someone like Parisi was a known quality before then, but you had Parisi, Matsaki from Salernitana, and then Augusto. I think Augusto is easily the best out of those three.
Yeah,
I think it's hard to complain in a way, because we've got probably the best, like the next best option if we were to sell Gosens. You described it as a savvy deal. For me, it's a little bit of a pointless deal, in that I personally really rate Gosens. So, I wanted to kind of give a bit of a eulogy for him and his time at Inter. For me, Gosens I saw him as a player with just a great mentality, great professionalism, like the definition of a really good squad player. In that, sure, he's different to DeMarco plays, but if we lose DeMarco, we're not losing anything in quality. If Gosens starts in his place, you know what I mean? We gain athleticism, we gain defensive solidity, we gain much better aerial presence as well. This is a guy who towered above Kyle Walker to spoon feed Lukaku a Champions League assist. He also, you can see him psyching himself up for that 96th minute last-ditch corner. He won the header and sent a perfect header towards the top corner, and only a Champions League winning save from Edison denied him, from being a Champions League hero. So Gosens is a player that I rate quite highly. It's a shame he didn't work out. Like I said, he's got that warrior mentality. If you had to bloody Photoshop any of our players' heads onto action heroes, it'd be Gosens, you know what I mean? Like Terminator, Gosens, John Wick. Have you seen how good Gosens looks wearing a turtleneck? You know what I mean? This guy he's got that ruthless German efficiency. And so I'll be sad to see him go. Hope he has a great career at Union Berlin and that he gets back into the national team. But yeah, like I said, I can't be too upset with the guy who's replacing him, Carlos Augusto, 4 years younger, coming off a great season. We don't know yet whether he'll have these same kind of intangible qualities as Gosens. That's yet to be seen. But don't forget, Gosens has a master's degree and is a published author. These are extremely important footballing qualities, as we all know. I don't think Carlos Augusto has written a book, so look, I'm pretty disappointed. All joking aside, I have a question for you guys. Gosens goes out on a full transfer to Union Berlin. Augusto comes in on a loan with an obligation, I believe. So to put it simplistically, we sell Gosens and get some money now. We then buy Augusto to pay next season. Are we doing this purely so that we have some money now?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't think we're doing it for the liquidity?
I don't think so. I think there's reasons to believe this is a footballing move. I have two thoughts why, and maybe Gosens is a little bit of the Dumfries mold in that
Sure.
it's a workhorse mentality. When I was talking earlier about like German and English players in particular, it feels like in the past 10 years, there's kind of been a death of creativity in them, where they're all kind of these machine-like figures who just run up and down the pitch with superior stamina, essentially. And I think Gosens kind of fits that build. He's not a super strong technical player. And I do think Augusto is the stronger technical player between the two of them. And the versatility is really valuable. We cannot afford a large squad the way a City can, or even a Juve can. And you needed someone who can cover the left center back position. We all know DeMarco is a complete disaster when he plays there. How many times does someone need to score a towering header over top of his, 5'10" body for you to see that? This will really help in the instances where Bastoni needs a rest. Bastoni's not capable of playing, because you just can't put a Cherby or a DeMarco in that left center back position anymore. One is too old. One is too poor defensively. So I think this is a football on reason, and I think it's clear Inzaghi maybe didn't value Gosens that much. And I think that really stems back to the point I was making a second ago, which is this team has no creativity. DeMarco on the left is really the only creative outlet we have. Replacing DeMarco with a Gosens during a match, you're just destroying the creative capabilities of the team. And that's why he maybe never really fit into this project the way he fit into Gasparini's, because under Gasparini, he had seemingly simple responsibilities, which is running up and down the flank, being the strong defensive player that he was. And the majority of the goals he was scoring was, he was making runs into the box and, side footing them into the nets. Whereas here, on the left-hand side in particular, we need someone who's going to go out and create more. That's what we had with Perisic. That's what we had with DeMarco, because the rest of the team just doesn't create enough chances for other players.
I think also that the same way that if we take out DeMarco, it will change our game when Gosens steps in, because Gosens can't play the same way. He doesn't have the same technicality and I don't know. He doesn't have some kind of you play these 1-2s with your teammates. He doesn't. I feel he doesn't have that same kind of game in him, and I think Carlos Augusto will have that kind of ability. He's like
I do think he's got more of that.
He's the Brazilian, and he can like play the ball. He's more skillful, and I think as you guys said, it will take a bit away maybe of this versatility, because we can't add this type of straightforward guy who's just storming the penalty box like Gosens did, and he did that well sometimes. Nothing wrong with that, but I think Inzaghi maybe wants like a like for like replacement for DeMarco, or like a player who can provide same kind of football as DeMarco can. And
I've definitely seen Augusto, take his man on with success and dribble, you know what I mean, and try to navigate through tight spaces. So definitely agree, he's got more of that element to his game.
And Augusto is actually not like a small player. He's at the same size as Gosens, actually. So maybe
he's much taller than DeMarco.
Physicality is not the same kind of issue. We are not maybe losing too much physicality here.
How about hairline, though? If you look at DeMarco and Augusto, you've got two young men in their early to mid-20s, both, Whereas if you see Gosens, you've got that iron German perfect hairline. It's a bit of a worry for me.
Maybe it's like for like in this respect.
like for like hairline, yeah, that's correct.
we have some, Barella's hairline.
Barella was tragic. He's going to be bald by the end of the season.
Yeah, he's on the clock. Brozovic, as long as he was here, was kind of slowly receding. So we're just, our manager has the best hair in the squad. There's no doubt about it.
Brozovic was just refining that M. You know what I mean? He was really, really drawing a hard M. But I don't think he was balding anytime soon. But with Barella, with Mkhitaryan, with Gosens, not Gosens, with DeMarco, and now with Augusto, I just worry about the you know, there's a lot of five heads in the team. You know what I mean?
But to your point,
Yeah.
I feel bad for Gosens because
Yeah.
when we paid a lot of money for him, we paid too much money for him, and I think that elevated expectations. But now he has a chance. He's going home. He's playing in the Champions League. Germany's hosting the Euro next summer. This is his This is his final chance, probably, to get into the squad and be a regular contributor to it. So, hopefully he can lock down Germany starting left back spots and have a really successful spell at Union.
Yeah. Just a final comment on just a final comment on what you said about German athletes in the last 10 years, like moving, towards that machine-like playing style. If you look at the German squad these days, I don't know any of them. There's no big recognizable names like there used to be up until 2010, 2006. You know what I mean? There was a time where I could easily name every German player in the national team and where they played, but these days I'm like, who are these guys? Like Füllkrug and stuff like that.
It's really interesting. So pretty much all my footballing interests I've picked up from my dad. And he, he's Italian, obviously. He isn't a huge fan of Germans in the footballing sense. And he told me before the 2014 World Cup that he was just looking at the German squad and thinking, like, man, these guys are going to win 3 tournaments in a row the way Spain had just done. Like, he was looking at the squad and said, like, this, Marco Reus, Julian Draxler, like these guys are going to be good. Yeah. And they won the 2014 World Cup. And I was like, he's right. Like, this team's unstoppable. Then they bounced Italy from the 2016 Euros. And I was like, yep, he called this one. And then ever since then, it's like, who are these guys? Like, it's been a steep drop in quality. Remember, like, when I was first getting into the sport, I guess the second World Cup I remember, the 2010 World Cup. And, like, I loved watching Ozil play because he was just so different as a player. And now you look at him and he's completely extinct. Like, that player doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm very tired and mostly just, filled with rage discussing our forward situation for the 3rd consecutive week. But because this club refuses to do anything about the forward situation, here we are discussing the forward situation for the 3rd consecutive week.
What do you mean we're not doing anything? We're offering 10 million for Arnautovic.
If I may rant for a minute about this, no one on this podcast ever believed you were actually signing Balogun. And I think you saw that bear out in the media, because I don't know if you ever saw really a real, tangible, legitimate offer made to Arsenal for the player.
Correct.
So we miss out on Scamacca over 2 million or whatever it was. We hear, don't worry, Balogun was the target all along. Ausilio loves him. He's the man. And then we don't even make a competitive offer for him. And now this has evolved into, we want to sign a 34-year-old who cannot stay fit and make him our 3rd striker. And better yet, if Inter knew what was going to happen with Lukaku, they would have just renewed Dzeko. This is not good, guys. Like, you have Lautaro, who is going to disappear for 2 months at a time. 2 strikers in Thuram and Correa, who not goal scorers. One of them's a dead body. How are you rounding out this forward corps? How are you signing Arnautovic? How is that the solution to this?
It has to be Taremi. It has to be Taremi. Like, I'm dead set on this. I'm not a fan of the idea. Like, people have raised the fact that he's going to miss like up to at least 6 games due to the Asian Cup. On top of that, he's 31, as we discussed previously. He's never played in a big league outside of Portugal. I think he played in Iran until he was like 26 or 27 or something. And he's on the last year of his contract. So the figures being rumored for him, 30 million, 25 million, they're outrageous. And yet I would pay 25 million to 30 million every day of the week before paying even 15 million for Arnautovic. As you said, he can't even stay fit anymore. He's, if Berbatov was a B grade version of Ibra, then Arnautovic is like a G grade version of Ibrahimovic. He's tall, he's skillful, he's got tattoos, and he's got a bit of a bad boy attitude. But this guy is not going to be this Ibra-like difference maker for us the way that Ibra was, when he returned to Milan a couple of years back, right? If anything, he's just going to spend most of his time in the infirmary. I don't understand this fascination we have with him. Every name that we're linked to just gets progressively worse. I don't even know what comes after Arnautovic.
Yeah, but honestly, I like Arnautovic. I would like us to sign him, but
of course you would. You love old strikers. That's your thing.
Yeah. Well, I would like Arnautovic more than Taremi, if that's like, yeah, because he was older. No. Well, not really. But yeah, actually the injury situation last season, it's a bit worrying. He played like 21 games last season. So yeah, that's not great. But maybe if he's like in a bench role, maybe he could he wouldn't be as injury prone then if he doesn't play as much. Because I don't think his stats are bad at Bologna. He has like 24 games in 54 games.
If we need a striker to ruin someone's Scudetto chances, he's your man. But other than that, like, I read something that if we signed him at 10 million, he would be the second most expensive player in history at that age for that price, with the number one being Cristiano. And I'm thinking, I mean, you don't often see players of that age transfer as it is, but when they do transfer for any kind of money, it's because they are, big guys like Cristiano or something. I refuse to see Arnautovic put on that list by us. I don't want to see that happening. And quite frankly, the finances are concerning. I wouldn't be half as irritated by the Arnautovic rumors if we were paying 4 million for him, you know what I mean? 5-6 million, but they rejected an offer of 12 million. I think we offered 8 million plus Sensi, valued at 4. I mean, the fact that we valued Sensi at 4 million is kind of indicative of why, going back to that early discussion about Juventus getting money for Zakaria and Pellegrini and Ravella, that's why we're not getting that kind of money, because we're just incapable of selling, and we do sell our players too cheaply, kind of chronically. But
I understood that it was like 8 million including Sensi. But
no, I thought it was 8 million plus Sensi, or maybe I could be wrong.
Yeah, because
if it's 8 million including Sensi, how much is Sensi valued and how much is the cash?
Yeah, but they refused it anyway. But then today I read that they want Aslani on loan, and then we rejected that. Let's see what's gonna happen. Yeah, the price is a bit problem, but that's purely because we are this late in the window, and we are like really in a panic mode with this one now.
And it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous though, because I'm sorry, this just really irks me, because if you could have signed Scamacca for 30 million.
Yeah.
You could be done with this. Instead, we're offering 25 million for some Iranian dude who plays in the Portuguese league. We all know what a great track record. Yeah, we all know what a great track record Inter has signing players from the Portuguese league. Why we're spending 15 million cash on a sixth midfielder? The priorities are all out of whack here. And if we go into the season buying a stopgap, basically a Zeko, like after we sold Lukaku, as our forward situation, we're going to be right back here next summer after this doesn't work out, trying to sell Bastoni to scrape together enough cash to go and play hardball with another Italian club or whatever striker we decide we want. It's just, this is the cycle we get ourselves into. We never solve problems. We just push the problem one summer into the future.
Yeah. I did see that in an interesting tweet where some guy was basically saying, we could have signed Scamacca for 30, but we refused to go over 25 or whatever. Balogun for 50, we refused to go over 35. Taremi for 30, refused to go over 20. This player, Morata for 21, refused to go over 14. And that it felt like sabotage, you know what I mean? It really does just feel like this weird, like those time wasters in retail, like the people who go into shops and pretend to be interested, but are just not it, but they're not serious about buying. That's what it gives me. That's the kind of vibes it gives me. I don't know what we're doing. We're just wasting time. We're just going out there nudging people, going, "Oh, how much is this? Okay, how much is this one? Oh, interesting." And then this one, sure, and then, "Oh, what time do you close?" With zero intention of buying. So it's just time wasting.
Yeah, but actually, directly related to this, I heard this one thing. It's a bit unconfirmed, of course, but it's also a bit disturbing to hear this kind of thing. But I heard that some people, like in the inside Inter, are really like pissed at Chang because that's Chang Junior, because he's like involved in this mercato as well, and he's like, it's like he is setting some values for different players, and then we can't go over this price and this price for like different targets. Yeah. So it's like he's not even like giving one number and you can, this is your budget and do whatever you want, but he's like micromanaging the whole thing, and it's driving people mad. But this is unconfirmed, but it would like
allegedly.
Yeah, but it would like it fits this whole thing we are like witnessing, because just like you said, it's this player X and Y and Z, and it's always the different, like the value is different, and we never reach the asking price.
For every player, every player's value is going to be A, B, C, D, whatever. The only constant is that our offer is going to be A -5, B -5, C -5.
Just enough. It's a mathematical formula. The club we're negotiating with.
Yeah, but it's really like hard situation for the directors as well, if they can't like they can't like do their job like with enough freedom. But apart from that, I would the Scamacca case was probably not about Chang, but more about Marotta fucking it up completely. So
it feels good to hear those words from you, Mika.
Well, it is what it is. I think he fumbled that one. It was about 1 day maybe. If he would have made the correct offer back then, there wouldn't be no Atalanta offer at all.
Yeah, but and by the sounds of it, they, even though Atalanta came in late, they gave us the chance to match it, and matching it was only 2 million more, and it sounded like the player would have given us the priority if we had matched Atalanta's offer. But we refused, and here we are discussing what shirt number Arnautovic is going to wear.
I often like to make fun of the business acumen of Europeans, particularly Italians. When you see like the Serie A TV rights go out for a market for negotiations, and then here we are now. Jay can't watch Coppa Italian games in Australia because they just didn't bother to sell the rights to anyone. This just feels like classic Italian mismanagement of, there's no rhyme or reason other than trying to be a badass in negotiations. Like I would love to see the financial stone cold evidence driving the decisions being made in these transfer offers, because I promise you there is none other than Zhang or whomever waking up and making a decision based on their feelings. This is just nonsensical.
Just assigning arbitrary limits to certain players and then refusing to change essentially.
The one thing I kind of take solace in is, if you circle back to our last episode, we kind of run around the room and said, what kind of striker do you want? And with the exception of this random Balogun fascination, it feels like every striker we've been linked to now, including Arnautovic, is of the same mold, which is that kind of bigger, towering target man. So I take a small iota of confidence in knowing, okay, at least we know what kind of player we're seemingly looking for, because Balogun was the only one we've been linked to of the opposite build, where you have this short, speedy guy who likes to get in behind defenses rather as opposed to someone who's going to contribute to the build-up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mate. You can take your iota and stick it where the sun don't shine, as I say. I get no comfort in that. Arnautovic is not a number 9. He's never been a number 9. And Taremi is, for example. I guess my iota of comfort comes from the fact that we're looking at a goal scorer in Taremi, because it makes no sense to get anyone else, in my opinion. Scamacca, although he hasn't been a hugely prolific scorer until now, I feel he could have been that here to a degree. My boy Naziri scored again on the weekend with his shoulder this time. Hugely impressive. But yeah, Arnautovic is not someone who's going to put the goal into the net regularly. Yeah, look, I think the options right now are limited, and even within the options we have, that we still have that disparity of we don't even know what kind of profile the management really wants, because they're all so different.
I heard that we discussed with Salernitana or Dia also, and
Great.
I just had to check, and he's like 1 meter and 80 centimeters long, so that's like 5'11". So
next, you're gonna tell me that we're going after Beto, and I'm just gonna hang up the phone.
But yeah. Apparently, we offered Sensi part of the deal, and
of course we did. Sensi is the new Montari.
Yeah, and they liked it, but I don't know if Sensi likes that going there. It was easy for him to go to Monza last season, but a bit different to move from Milano to Salerno.
It's part of the thing, and this is a different conversation, but part of the thing with these players is when you're telling them to go on loan for a season, they'll do whatever. They still get paid their nice juicy interwage. They know they're coming back. Like it's a short-term move. Now we're trying to insert Sensi into these deals, and this is permanent, right? He has to go live in Salerno for the next 4 years, and they might get relegated this season. And that's why you can never convince these players to take these moves. And that's why you so rarely see these like player swaps actually come to fruition with our like fodder.
Hey man, Salerno is a beautiful place from what I hear.
I have not been south of Rome. That's not true. I have not been south of like Latina in Italy before, so I've never been to the lovely town of Salerno.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know, but if I would, I guess if we could like sell Correa or whatever, get him out.
We're not selling Correa.
But if you can like loan him out, then I wouldn't maybe mind. I like him more than Correa because there's not many players I like.
You dislike more than Correa. Who else is there? Who else that we can feasibly sign that we can be confident that our recruitment team would even discover? Because we've mentioned this before, but it seems like they refuse to, look outside the box that they're in.
But I think there was the Choupo-Moting mentioned.
Oh God.
Yeah. I mentioned him remember in the first episode, and now he's here. I think Gazzetta reported it.
I guess Gabbiadini wasn't available.
But yeah,
Choupo-Moting would be better than Arnautovic, I think.
Well, we know he's better than Icardi.
I think they are the same age, so
They are both 34.
I'm on-
That is correct.
yeah. So I am on the fence now. But yeah,
Choupo-Moting
actually,
struck me as a guy who kind of he's like a Darmian in that sense. He's he's a designated backup at a big squad like Bayern and where was he before then? PSG. You know, It's easy to kind of do well in those circumstances as a backup when you've got these huge personalities and these huge players just carrying the team, you know, like Mbappe, Neymar, and Bayern Munich, you got your Müller and Kimmich and all these guys. But if you take them out of that sphere, I do think they'll struggle. I'm skeptical that he could replicate it elsewhere, to be honest.
I actually read that he's injured at the moment.
He's injured pretty often too. That's another comparison with Arnautovic. So
just bring Pinamonti back. I don't care anymore. I'm losing faith in the forward situation. Oh, I have no faith in the forward situation at this point. I just know we're going to be scrambling in January to sign someone on loan to try to fix this situation.
Yeah. I read that Roma is trying to close the deal on Zapata, so he's out of the market soon.
It would not be an Interjections podcast without me lusting after Scamacca and somehow us getting a Zapata mention into the podcast. So thank you.
Yeah. Then there's of course Petagna. I don't even know. Is he in Monza?
I thought it was in Monza.
Every time I look at Petagna, he has gained another 20 kilos. He's growing wider and wider. So, okay.
He's there.
I want to just bring this up because this happened live while we're recording. Now, did you guys see this morning that Mancini resigned from the national team?
I did.
Yeah.
So I was not. So as a fan of the national team, I wasn't overly upset. He'd been horrible since the end of the Euro tournaments, and this was a good opportunity to freshen things up. But I was a little disappointed. They're not. This is a different kind of bad news. This is, guess where he is going?
Inter.
He's going to manage the Saudi national team.
Ugh.
What?
And this is just such a depressing state where we can't compete anymore. We cannot compete. The money is too good. The latest rumors on Twitter are that he is going to the Saudi national team, and that the replacements being considered by the FIGC are Daniele De Rossi and Fabio Cannavaro.
Has De Rossi managed, a team in his life?
He's the Primavera manager for it. Is the Primavera manager for Roma or the Italian under-21 team? I can't recall.
Yeah, I think the Italian,
But he managed Spal last season for maybe, I don't know how many games.
That's right. How did Spal do under his management?
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Did they go to Serie C?
He was dismissed after leaving them in 18th place in Serie B.
Yeah.
So that's the man you want in charge of the national team, right?
I mean, he cannot be worse than Ventura. So I will take. I think we've all seen the video of Italy losing to Sweden, or maybe tied with Sweden.
Yeah. Ventura trying to get
De Rossi on the bench. And Ventura tells him to warm up. De Rossi points at Insigne and says he needs to be warming up. So clearly he has better football acumen than Ventura. So by all means.
This is De Rossi would just be like the best example of what we in Australia call jobs for the boys, which is basically just the term, it's pretty self-explanatory, just nepotism, you know what I mean? where you get your friends and like, you know, famous people essentially jobs based on their profile or relationships rather than competency. So
Yeah, it's like
at Inter we don't even have jobs for the boys. We don't have forwards for the boys. We don't have, you know.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of like Irfan buying Inter and then hiring us as scouts, despite the fact we were completely unqualified.
Oh, look, mate. Given the scouting that we're seeing these days, I'm pretty confident in my own abilities. I was talking with a friend not that long ago. Shout out to my friend, and he said something funny, which was that if you're a scout, you've got, you know, 8 hours of business per day to just find players. How is it that all you can find is Arnautović?
If
it's
you
your full-time job to watch tape and find players 8 days, you know, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you know, 50 weeks of the year, and this is the best you can do, you know, like it's insane. It's insane.
I think
I'm gonna tell you, he's gonna be good. He's gonna be good.
We can't afford him. He's not coming.
This is one instance where that arbitrary hard budget limit is working in our favor for Arnautović. But at this point, we have to keep Korea, do we not?
Yeah, I mean, he can't leave. We can't afford 2 forwards.
That's a bleak thought.
Well,
the forward situation is developing by the minute. We're not going to have any clarity on this before the first match of the season.
Oh, yeah. This is going down to the wire. Like, I don't even know when the Mercato ends. Is it August 31st still, or is it September something?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know the exact date, but...
And of course, different windows close at different times, so that'll limit our options further.
Yeah, one funny point about that is that they've noticed that the Saudi Pro League has their window is closing on 20th of September. And,
nice and late, so they can still poach players.
Yeah, exactly. So the teams are a bit worried about that they will Saudi teams will start to bid for players late in the or like mid-September, and there's nothing nothing these teams can do anymore.
They're gonna arrive with an 70 million Godfather offer for Barella, and then pack his bags and be like, "Get out of here! I need the capital gains." We're going to play Sensi as our new right side. All right, let's move to a more optimistic note. This has been a bit of a frustrating discussion as normal. Let's move on to listener questions. I've got 2 for you guys. If you have a question and you're listening to this podcast, feel free to just DM me on the forum, and then maybe one of these days will become a proper podcast and set up an email. You can email questions too. So I'll add that to my to-do list. But
does that mean we have 2 listeners at least?
We have at least 2 listeners, and neither of them are our parents. So I think it's a pretty good sign.
Very good. Okay, let's hear the questions.
All right, number 1. Inzaghi is known for also utilizing a 3-5-1-1 formation at Lazio. Is there a chance we don't get another striker and start playing the 3-5-1-1? Who would be our Luis Alberto?
Is there a chance? No. I don't know why, but he seems to not be interested in doing that here at Inter. He hasn't even experimented with it. And we've had the same personnel. And that Correa used to play that 1 every now and again. You know what I mean? It wasn't always like an AM behind Immobile, as far as I recall. I think Correa played that 1 behind Immobile pretty often. And he's had that option here. He's just never done it. So it seems like he's pretty set on the 3-5-2. I'm personally all in favor of it. I don't mind the idea of it, especially with this absolute dearth of striking options. The obvious answer behind the striker, it can only be, one of 3 players, Samardzic, Touchwood, Mkhitaryan, or Sensi if he stays. But obviously the ideal would be Mkhitaryan or Samardzic. But I'm not against it as a tactical option. about you, Miko, Andrew?
Yeah. I think that we should try to like at least train it so we could have some kind of little change or some kind of options for certain situations. But I also don't see that we would use that. We actually used that in one game when Inzaghi started at Inter. It was his first game, home opener against Genoa. We won it like 4-0, and Sensi was starting. Or I think it was Sensi starting as the one there.
Really?
Yeah, but it was that one game.
I remember that game.
Yeah, because Lautaro wasn't available and Seco was starting, and I don't know who else did we have. Sanchez maybe. I don't know. Did we even have Sanchez? But we didn't have Correa at that point, so I think that was the reason.
Simpler times. So I think the best option is Mkhitaryan if we want to do this, and then that lets you put Frattesi on the pitch, and then you're pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
The problem with this is this only works with Lautaro up front. You cannot do this with Thuram or Correa.
Exactly.
Unless you're at that point, you're just going straight Spanish football, playing a false nine, trying to score without a striker on the pitch, which we are not. We do not have
score with us.
Yeah, we do not have enough technical ability to do that. But this could have to happen because, like, let's fast forward to next week. We're going to next week with 3 strikers, and let's say Correa pulls a muscle, which is highly likely between now and the weekends.
There's a 50% chance he's injured by now and next weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a chance this has to happen because God knows we cannot actually change actual formation. It has to be a 3-5 or 3-4 something. So I'd say there's a 40% chance you see something like this during the course of the season.
I mean, I like the idea of having, Frattesi and Mkhitaryan on the pitch at the same time. You've got Mkhitaryan, you can like make things happen with the ball and, swiftly take the ball, duck behind or pull back a little bit and then feed Frattesi, who makes like a run into the box. You know what I mean? I can very much see that happening. But you mentioned it can only happen with Lautaro on the pitch. I was going to say pretty much the opposite. I don't think Lautaro is the guy for a 3-5-1-1. I don't think he's clinical enough. I don't think he's fast enough either. Like, say what you want about Immobile. The guy is deceptively fast for being, 33 years old. He's a player that's got a decent amount of speed, whereas Lautaro is, surprisingly extremely slow. So I think these things work against him. I don't think Lautaro is great at holding the ball up as well. Immobile is better in that regard. So you had a more complete striker. I don't know, if you want to say who's better, it's not really the concern here. But I think Immobile is a more complete forward than Lautaro. And, that makes a big difference in that formation. On top of that, you have you have like a really just like a pure creative genius in Luis Alberto, you know what I mean? That guy is far more technical than any players we have in our team. And so we lack that as well. So I don't think we'll see it very often, if at all, but I would like to see, Samardzic, Mkhitaryan get a go, because I'm sure that there'll be times where we're lacking in personnel for the forwards.
I am excited, though, and maybe excited is not the term. I'm interested to see, since Lautaro got here, he had Icardi, and then he had Lukaku. He has kind of always been in their shadows. Well, last season after the World Cup, he really came into his own. And while I agree, like his characteristics as a player, what he excels at, leads him to be more of the second striker, the Robin than the Batman. I do want to see what it looks like this season, having more of a scoring onus. Maybe he can spend less time pressing and focus more on being a creative outlet for the team. I want to give him a chance to grow into the role. He's young. how old is Lautaro now? Is he 24, 25?
25, 26, isn't he?
Yeah, like it's not inconceivable that he's going to get better and round out his game more. So I'd like to give him this season to try and say, okay, you're the man now. The attack runs through you, and see what the team looks like. I want to give him that chance because he really hasn't had that chance since he arrived, and it really felt like the last 6 months of last season he was a different player.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think he took that role a bit last season because he was usually the first guy who was like drawn to the starting lineup, or like Lukaku was supposed to be that first striker, but then he wasn't playing much. So then Lautaro had to like take that leader role, and I think he did that pretty well, especially in the later part of the season.
Especially when wearing the armband, he gets +5 stats when he wears the captain's armband.
Yeah, now that he's the captain, there's like more kind of leading responsibility, and I think it will suit Lautaro really well, and I hope he will like take another step up from here. But as everyone knows, he's one of my favorite players and have been for several years. But
Lautaro is a guy that I really, he's like, Lautaro is like a retarded younger brother. I love him dearly, but I just can't get over how retarded he is sometimes. Like, as you said, he'll go through like a 2-month spell where he won't score goals. He does that about 4 times per season. You know what I mean? So, as much as I really want to, and I would still, even now, as a disclaimer to what I'm gonna say, I would still give him that chance because that's what you do for a, handicapped younger brother. But like, there's been so many times where I've seen something from Lautaro where I'm like, this is it. He's finally kind of taken that step, shown that maturity. And then he just goes and butchers like the most easy chances, and then goes on another, 8-game drought, only to break it with a poker against Salernitana. You know what I mean? There's been no shortage of times where I feel like I've seen genuine development in his game, only for him to seemingly revert back to his norm of just, we discussed it the other week, how someone like Scamacca has a really cultured right foot and a cannon of a foot, whereas I said Lautaro just kind of hacks at the ball very kind of mindlessly. I still see that in him. There was a chance, I can't remember what game it was actually, but it was one of the preseason games where he had a good chance and he just, like, his body shape was completely wrong when he went to hit the ball, and he does this quite frequently, you know what I mean? So yeah, look, I worry about giving Lautaro that kind of responsibility. I'm not 100% convinced, based on what I've seen so far, that he has the inherent skills to do so. But like I said, family first, right? You gotta take care of your siblings. So give him that chance, even if I have a fear of being let down again.
I don't know. Maybe the retarded younger brother is a bit harsh, but yeah.
It's also his brow, I've always got that caveman kind of Neanderthal brow, but let's not dwell on that.
But the scoring is hard, so I think we need to like give him some slack in this regard.
Yeah,
we have these midfielders; they can score more now.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't have to do everything. Yeah, I think 20 league goals for Lautaro. That's enough.
With 10 of them coming across the 2 games against Salernitana.
Yes, please.
I would not be surprised if he wins the Captain this year. When you go through the options of who would be the most likely candidates, I think he's probably number 1 with the bullets, because you have Vlahovic, who appears to be on his way out at Juve. You've got Immobile, who is on the downside of his career. Last year was his worst season in a long time. You can't really bet on a 33-year-old to get better. So it's really him and Osimhen. Those are your top 2 options.
You're missing Leao, first of all. So number 1 is Leao. I'll give a cautious number 2 to Okafor, and then we'll go Osimhen.
I wish our good friend Irfan was here to hear the slander.
What's the second question? This question.
The second, the second listener question is going to be a bit harder to answer, and I'll spend some time on this one. Why is Jay so annoyed?
I'm just a realist, you know. Inter's been. It's also because we have to watch matches at just, you know, ungodly times in Australia. So, you know, waking up bleary-eyed at 4 a.m. to watch a match, and then, you know, watch like your typical 1-1 against Crotone, you know what I mean, with 1 shot on target across 90 minutes, and then having to immediately go to work it wears on you over a long period of time.
Okay, I feel you.
Yeah.
Miko has the best time zone situation of anyone on this podcast, where you're like 1 hour ahead of Italy, so you can work around most instances. Yeah. Occasionally, we play matches at 6 a.m. local time for me, and when we have those matches, or maybe I guess it's 6:30, I just know every time I wake up, they lose a scrappy 2-0 against, you know, Crotone. But every time I wake up for the match, every time I wake up for the match, they lose. And every time I sleep through the match and just, you know, hit snooze on the alarm and say, F it, I'm going back to bed, they'll win 7-0 against Sampdoria or Sassuolo. It's just, those are the only 2 options that exist in the universe.
Yeah. I think actually those, it's like the noon game in Italy. Those your morning games. And I think we don't have, Inter doesn't have to like it's not a great record for these noon matches.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it was actually the infamous Bologna Inter 2-1 was noon game also.
That was an early game as well,
yeah. Maybe I'm the most calm person, because I don't get to experience this unusual hours.
I think the real answer to the question is there are a lot of deep-seated psychological issues that we won't truly understand until he dies and we can scan his brain for proper imaging.
Correct. We need a full autopsy. Look, so let's end with the latest on Samardzic, which is that he's still just walking around Milan, just gone. He's still just taking strolls around Milan. Apparently he's run out of room service to order, you know, bored of just swimming in the hotel pool. The guy is literally just walking around Milan, just talking to fans at this point. And, you know, the indication is that he's positive, but I just don't see why he doesn't call his dad and just say, you know, Dad, just fuck off. Let me deal with this, and just, you know, sign the contract. But that's the latest.
You know, you start working his way through the different Jewish attractions. First, he went to the Duomo.
Yeah.
Then, you know, he probably went to a few famous churches. Then he went to the Teatro alla Scala. You know, took a picture on the, you know, where Ericsson did when he first joined us. And now he's just out of marquee landmarks, and he's just walking around talking to people like a lost child who has been abandoned.
Like some YouTuber with a mic just interviewing bombs on the street, you know?
Yeah. All right, we'll give you guys a good deep dive into each club before matches kick off next week. As we've mentioned, Inter Monza, first match of the season. I'm sure D'Ambrosio will be scoring a nice 90th minute back post header to, you know, sink us into a 1-1 draw.
Assisted by Gagliardini.
Yeah, off the corner. We'll give you
by Carlos Augusto, because we won't have wrapped up the deal by then.
Yeah. That's actually the most likely scenario. Transfer falls apart. He whips in a left-footed cross off a corner. D'Ambrosio back post header. He refuses to celebrate. And we're 10th place in the table, after day one. Yeah, we'll do a Serie A preview next week. Hopefully we have some new players. Maybe we'll even have a forward. But yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you all then.
Goodbye.
Yeah, bye.